Finishing up lesson 8.4, this is our third part of volume of spheres. So if you look at workbook page 103, once again our formula for a volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And so if we look at number 4, we have a spherical container, has a surface area of about 5,538.96 square centimeters. And the question is, what is the volume of the container? Use 3.14 for pi, round to the nearest hundredth. So to start with, we also had, besides our volume formula, we also had a surface area formula. So surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So if we start out with that, they're telling us what the surface area is. So we can substitute that into the equation. And also they told us to use 3.14 for pi. So from this, we'll be able to figure out what the radius is, and then we'll be able to use that in our formula and then figure out what the volume is. So we're going to try to simplify things a little bit here. So over on the right side of the equation, we can multiply 4 times 3.14, which is 12.56. I had a typo there for a second, so it's 0.96 instead of 0.94. So at this point, they are multiplying, so we can divide by 12.56. Always do the opposite operation. That gets the r squared by itself. So divide that out is 441. Then at that point they are squaring, so we're going to take the square root here. So the square root of that is 21. Oh, technically we should put plus or minus here when we add that square root sign on, even though it's really not going to be negative for what we're doing in this case. Radius can't be negative. Okay, so we know our radius is 21, and then now we can use our volume formula. So they said use 3.14 for pi. We figured out our radius is 21. So if we were doing this technically order of operations, one step at a time, we would first cube the 21, which is 9,261. And then if you wanted to, you could just multiply those two together. Otherwise, if you want to multiply all three of these together, you can. So that would be 116,318.16. And that's over 3. So we can just divide that out. And it did say to the nearest hundredth. So nearest hundredth. So that would be 38,772.72. Lots of 7s and 2s. Cubic centimeters. Again, to the nearest hundredth there. So part B, it says if 600 cubic centimeters of water flow into the container in 1 minute, about how many minutes will it take to fill the container? So 600 cubic centimeters in 1 minute. And the question, how many minutes to fill the container? So in order to figure this out, what we need to do is we need to take our volume and divide by 600. In other words, how many 600s are we going to get until we get up to 38,772.72. And the deal is, if you divide this out, you get like 64.6212. It says about how many minutes, so we could, I guess, round that off and say about 65 minutes. So a little over an hour to fill that up. Number 5, we have a sphere with a radius of 19 inches, which they told us. They also have that on the picture, so double covered there. Question is, what is the volume? And they want us to use 3.14 for pi round to the nearest hundredth. So much less involved problem here. Pretty straightforward. We're just going to start with our formula. Again, highly recommend you write your formula down and then substitute into it. If you have your formula on one place on another sheet of paper or something, and then you're trying to do it on this sheet and you're like looking back and forth, there's more of a chance of making a mistake when you transfer that onto your actual paper here. So for pi, they just said use 3.14, and they actually told us the radius. Just remember, make sure you have the radius. If they give you the diameter, remember you have to take half of that in order to find your radius. So first thing, if we were doing this by the order of operations, we would cube 19 is 6,859. And then if you wanted to multiply 3.14 times 6,859 is 21,537.26. At that point, if you want to go ahead and put that over 1, you could have put those over 1 on the previous step if you wanted to. Not a big deal either way, however you want to do that. So if we multiply that, would be 86,149.04 over 3. And then we're going to divide this out and go to the nearest hundredth. And that is about 28,716.35 cubic inches. Again, that's to the nearest hundredth. Number 7, surface area of a globe in Mr. Patton's classroom is about 452.39 square inches. Find its volume, use 3.14 for pi, and round to the nearest whole number. So starting out, we would just need our formulas, which again will be given to us. Will be given to you on your test, will be given to you on your iLearn test. So surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So we need to figure out what our radius is first before we can find our volume. So we can just substitute in. Surface area, 3.14 for pi. And this is going to be pretty much like what we did back on number 4. So we can clean things up a little bit on the right side. 4 times 3.14 is 12.56. Then they're multiplying, so we divide by 12.56. So when you divide that out, is not very nice. 36.018 3121, and this is actually going to keep going. It doesn't end there, but it's just your calculator only shows so many digits on that. So they're squaring that. We need to take the square root. When you do that on your calculator, you can do square root, and then we want the square root of the answer. So to get answer, again, you do second and the negative button. So square root, and then of the answer, and that's going to be r, not r squared. It's pretty close to 6. Technically, they're just saying round to the nearest whole number would just be our answer, but this is actually what they did, is just rounded that off. It's really, really close to 6. Again, if it wasn't just that close to the 6, we would have, we could have kept all the numbers there, but so 6 cubed is 216, and then if you want to, you can go ahead and put those over ones and just multiply straight across, or you can do it in steps, whichever way you want to do that. So multiplying across, that'd be 2,712.96. And we'll divide that by 3. And they said to the nearest whole number. So nearest whole number would be 904. So 904 cubic inches approximately would be our volume. So this gives you an idea of how to find volume of spheres.